Hi, this is Brian Katzung with kpowertools.com, and in this video I'm going to give a short tutorial on how to jump to a specific page element, how to locate the necessary HTML or create it, and how to modify a URL in order to jump to a specific page element, Kartra, page builder, and membership builder style. So first of all, to jump to a specific area of a page. So for example, if we wanted to give a URL that would scroll the page automatically to section 2 or to, for example, the beginning of the second paragraph. First, you need some code within the HTML for the page. And there's an older, somewhat outdated, still available, but somewhat outdated approach. And that is to create what is called an HTML anchor. And that uses an HTML tag with a name attribute that specifies the name of the anchor. And then you wrap that tag around some text. So for example, if you wanted to create an anchor around lorem 2, you could say less than a name equals, and then in double quotes, the name of the anchor, close quotes, greater than lorem 2, less than /a, greater than, and that would create an anchor for that. More common these days is just to add an ID attribute to an existing tag. So you have some HTML tag, and if it's already got an ID attribute associated with it, you can use the existing ID. If it doesn't have an ID attribute on it, you can add your own. You can only have one ID attribute per tag, and the ID that you assign to that tag must be unique for that page. You can't use the same ID twice on a page. Once you have either an anchor or a tag, you can modify a URL to go to a specific place on the page by taking the page URL, adding a hashtag or pound sign, same thing, whatever you want to call it, and then after that, you put in the name of the anchor or the ID for the anchor. So in Kartra, whenever you create a section, so for example, this page, this demo page has two sections. One I've labeled section 1 and one I've labeled section 2. Each section in Kartra is automatically assigned an ID. So if you just want to jump to a page builder section, you can use the existing ID. If you want to jump somewhere more specific, like later on in this example, I'll jump to section 2, paragraph 2, so it'll come to where it says lorem 2 ipsum, then chances are you'll need to add your own ID. So there are a couple of different ways, if you're going to jump to a section, that you can find the existing ID for the section. So one of them is to use the developer tools, and the easiest way to find a section ID with the developer tools is to right click, or on a Mac command click, and then say inspect, and I'll pull the inspection window. I've got mine set to open in a new tab. So it's going to highlight the element that you right or command clicked on, and from there we need to work our way up. Each section in the page builder is loaded within an iframe. So what we need to do is find the iframe that contains the section for which we're trying to locate. Actually, for my examples, I'm actually going to be jumping to this section. So let me do an inspect for section 2, so that when we go find the iframe, we find the right ID. So if we scroll up here, we'll see there's a head tag and a body for this section, and then right above that we have an iframe tag. So this is going to contain our ID. So if you look at this section here, it says ID equals, and then it's got underscore and a bunch of random letters and numbers. This is the Kartra assigned ID for this section. Now, in the page builder, this ID is assigned to an iframe. In the actual page preview, if we open the inspector for this preview page, that same ID is now assigned to a content div. Another way to find the section ID is if you have the KCSG Tools for Kartra Google Chrome plugin, you can go into a section with the column mode turned on, and then click on the Open Column tool. This is an extension that's provided by the KCSG Tools for Kartra plugin. When you open that, it will tell you the section ID right here in the Column Power tool, and you can copy that. So an example of using the section ID would be, and I'm just using the preview here, so this is the preview URL for that page. So if you add the section ID, it will scroll to that section. And I'm going to shorten this page considerably here, because if you open it to a whole page, you won't see the scrolling effect, because it's only going to scroll to here if the page is short enough to force it to actually scroll to that section. If the section is already visible, you're not going to see any difference. So this is showing too much to force it to scroll. So let me make this considerably shorter here, just to this part. So I'll open this link in a new tab. And so as you can see, instead of opening it to section 1, it has scrolled down to this anchor point. So now section 2 is the visible portion. So now suppose that we want to scroll to a more specific part, like have it go to this paragraph here. So for that, there isn't already assigned a tag for that. Well, let's do it for lorem 1, because I have actually for this demo already assigned something. So if I do an inspection here, you can see here is you can see it flashing in the back. Here's the paragraph. Here's the code for that paragraph, and here's the Kartra container for that. No ID has been assigned to this div, so we can't currently go directly to that paragraph. So let's look at the different ways that we can assign a tag here. So the first one is to assign a tag using the Kartra section editor, and that works for the page builder only. There is no section editor in the membership builder, for example. So this method only works in the page builder. If you go to the section tools, which is this reddish gear icon that appears at the vertical midpoint of the section when you hover over it. So when you hover over a section, the gear icon will appear in the middle of the section. If you click on that, it'll open. If it's a tall enough section, it'll open a vertical toolbar. If it's a really short section, it'll open out to the side. So this section here, I'm trying to get the hover to work. It's not working real well, but there's an edit code block label here for this. When you open this, it opens the HTML code that represents that block. So the easiest way to find what you need is to click somewhere near the top of the edit source code window, come over here to the extra tools and click find, and then search for some text that is part of the code you want. So I'm just going to look for do a search for lorem 2. So here you can see lorem 2 is highlighted. And in this case, this was a div that didn't already have an ID in it. Like, it looked like this paragraph for the lorem 1 part of the block. It just had this div and this div, neither of which have any ID attribute to it. In order to go to that block, I've added an ID to this HTML div tag, and I've called it S2P2, as in section 2, paragraph 2. So one way to add it would be to come into this code editor using the section editing tools and just add this attribute. So you would basically just come in here. If I did it for lorem 1, the div is here, and you could just type in ID equals double quote, and for example this could be section 2 paragraph 1, and then you would just click save, and that would be one way to add an ID tag to this div. So that's one approach. Another approach is to use the browser development tools, and this would work for the membership builder as well as for the page builder. So you can right click, or on the Mac you can command click and do an inspect, and you can see that's taken us to that bold lorem 1 that's right there at above the window. So in this case, here's the Kartra container, and I would say so for example, there's no existing ID attribute on this. If there were an ID attribute, once again you could just use that as your tag. But since there isn't one here, I'm going to right or command click for Mac, and I would say add attribute. And when you do it this way, the attribute ends at the end. It doesn't matter where it appears, it's all the same. I would say ID equals double quote. This would be section 2, paragraph 1. You can call it whatever you want. I'm just using that as an example. And then you can either press the enter key or click outside of the attribute to complete the editing. I'm gonna cancel that one since I don't want to complete that change. But you'll see that I've already added that attribute down here to add an ID for S2P2. So those are the two ways. And after you make a change like that, if you're in here, you should make sure you do a save progress to save if you are working in the page builder, or similarly, there's a similar way to save when you're working in the membership editor if you're adding a tag to part of a membership post. So those are the two ways to add an ID to an element that doesn't already have an ID. So now if we take the preview link again, and you'll see that I've added hashtag S2P2. So if we shorten this window once again, I'll just use this as my height reference. So that should be enough to force it to scroll. So now if I click this link, you'll see that it has scrolled down to the lorem 2 paragraph of that page. So there it is, lorem 2 in section 2, paragraph 2 of section 2. You should note that when you are doing Kartra internal links, often there'll be a choice between jumping to a Kartra page, in which case you'll pick the Kartra site and the page within the site. Those links cannot be customized to add your anchor or ID with a hashtag on the end. So when you're jumping to a particular anchor or ID in a page, you will need to use the external URL option and then plug in the published page URL with a hashtag or # and your anchor or ID on the end. I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you for watching.